When you look at a map to climb a mountain, the elevation profile is usually just this perfectly smooth, predictable line.
Right, it looks like a gentle ramp.
Exactly, like it's just a ramp from the base all the way to the summit. But then you actually get out there on the trail, and it is full of jagged rocks, sudden drops, and endless false summits.
Yeah, the map is the theory, but the hike is the messy reality.
And when we look at the reality of retirement savings in America right now, the disconnect between that theoretical math and what's actually happening in people's bank accounts it's staggering.
It really is the ultimate reality check because the financial models we build, they assume this perfect, uninterrupted upward trajectory.
Right, like you put money in, it grows at 8% forever, and you retire on a beach.
Exactly. But real life is incredibly messy. Averages tell us one story, but the medians are screaming something completely different.
Which is our exact mission for this custom-tailored deep dive today. We are mapping out the current state of retirement savings in America, going age group by age group.
Breaking down the exact math you need to survive.
Yes, we're going to decode exactly what you need to hit financial independence by the traditional retirement age of 65. Whether your goal is standard financial independence, retire early, or you're gunning for that lavish fat fire lifestyle, we have the roadmap for you.
And we are pulling from a massive stack of sources today to do this.
We are. We've got the brand new 2026 IRS contribution limits, the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, Vanguard's 2025 How America Saves report, and this seriously dense actuarial paper by Drew Thomas on the mathematical realities of withdrawal rates.
But before we get into the chronological breakdown, we have to establish the core tension running through all of this data.
Right, the average versus the median.
Exactly. If you look at the average retirement savings in America, things might actually look okay. The Federal Reserve notes the average savings is around $87,000 for the general population.
Which sounds, not terrible.
Right, but that average is a massive illusion. It's heavily skewed by extreme wealth. A few billionaires drastically pull that number up. The number that actually matters, the true reality check for you, is the median.
The person standing exactly in the middle of the pack.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at the middle of the pack at the starting line, your 20s and 30s. According to the Federal Reserve, the median retirement savings for Americans under 35 is a mere $6,400.
Yeah, that is a scary number.
But our sources show a massive split here. Data from Empower, which tracks highly engaged users of their financial dashboard, shows a median of over $43,000 for those in their 20s.
And nearly $79,000 for those in their 30s.
Right. So that split highlights the difference between the general public and people who are actively tracking their financial lives.
And if you are in this age group and looking to eventually achieve FIRE, the widely accepted benchmark from Fidelity is that by age 30, you should have 1 times your annual salary saved.
1 times your salary. So if you make $60,000 a year, you need $60,000 sitting in investment accounts by your 30th birthday.
Correct. And the reason we set that target is based on the fundamental math of FIRE, which is known as the rule of 25.
The Bankrate source breaks this down mathematically, right?
Yeah. To safely step away from work, you need 25 times your anticipated annual retirement expenses. So if you plan to spend $40,000 a year in retirement, your ultimate target, your FIRE number, is $1 million.
Okay, so hitting 1 times your salary by 30 is the leading indicator that you're on the right trajectory to reach that multiple of 25 by your 60s.
Exactly. It's the foundation.
I always think about compound interest in your 20s like rolling a tiny snowball down a very long hill. The first few rolls pick up almost nothing. It feels totally pointless.
Oh, absolutely. Feels like you're getting nowhere.
But by the time it reaches the bottom of the hill, its surface area is so massive it's absorbing entire snowbanks per rotation.
Yeah.
But I have to push back on this benchmark.
Okay, lay it on me.
If the Federal Reserve median for this age group is only $6,400, how is anyone actually hitting 1 times their salary by 30? I mean, is the system just fundamentally broken for young people carrying rent and student loans?
Well, the hurdles are very real, but Vanguard's 2025 data points to a structural solution that bypasses human psychology: automatic enrollment.
Forced savings.
Exactly. Vanguard found that retirement plans with automatic enrollment have a 94% participation rate compared to just 64% for voluntary plans. The system works best when it removes human inertia. You basically have to hide the money from yourself before you can spend it.
Wait, okay, automatic enrollment gets them participating, sure.
Ain't it?
But if they're only auto-enrolled at a default 3%, That's barely keeping up with inflation. How does that math actually get them to 1 times their salary by 30?
It doesn't. Not if it stays at 3%. That is the trap.
So what's the fix?
The Vanguard data shows the real magic is in auto-escalation features, where that contribution automatically increases by 1% every single year. Oh, without you having to do anything.
Right. The first decade isn't about saving massive raw dollar amounts. It's about forcing the math of compound interest to begin rolling before lifestyle creep sets in. If you can automate your contributions and escalations in your 20s, you completely bypass the psychological friction of parting with your money.
Okay, so automatic enrollment solves the inertia problem in your 20s. But that passive strategy hits a huge brick wall the second you have a mortgage and kids.
It really does.
How does the math hold up when you're getting squeezed from both sides? Which brings us to the make or break decade, your 40s.
If your 30s are about getting the snowball rolling, your 40s are about pushing it down a much steeper hill. The math geometrically accelerates in this decade. You're moving from foundational growth to critical mass.
Here's where it gets really interesting and sobering. For Americans aged 35 to 44, the Federal Reserve median is only $14,000.
Wow.
And for ages 45 to 54, it's $40,000. I mean, you cannot retire on $40,000.
No, absolutely not. But again, look at the engaged Empower users in their 40s. Their median sits at roughly $157,000. That gap between the general public and the engaged planner is widening rapidly.
Because to stay on track for FIRE by 65, the benchmark jumps significantly. By age 40, you should have 3 times your annual salary saved.
3 times.
Yes, 3 times is the baseline. But this is the decade you have to really choose your pain. Are you willing to live on beans and rice in your 50s for lean FIRE, or are you aiming for fat FIRE?
The bank rate source outlines fat FIRE as aiming for a high annual expenditure, say $80,000 to $100,000 or more a year, to fund lavish vacations, dining out, and completely ignoring a budget.
Sounds nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Which, applying that rule of 25 we talked about, means your fat FIRE number is $2 million to $2.5 million.
Precisely. And to hit a fat FIRE number like 2.5 million by 65, your 3 times multiplier in your 40s needs to represent a highly aggressive savings rate. We are talking well beyond a standard employer match. You have to be intentionally hyperfunding your accounts.
But your 40s are simultaneously your peak earning years and your peak expense years. The Pearl Wealth Group source points out the massive obstacles hitting people right now. Lingering student loans, massive mortgage payments, skyrocketing childcare costs.
It's the squeeze.
Yeah, getting squeezed from both sides. But they highlight a brilliant strategy to fight back, the HSA, or Health Savings Account.
The HSA is arguably the most powerful, misunderstood account in the American financial system.
Because it's a stealth retirement tool. Most people think it's just a debit card for copays, but it has a triple tax advantage. Contributions go in tax-free, they grow tax-free, and if used for qualified medical expenses, they come out tax-free.
It's incredible. But the real trick is the how. You don't reimburse yourself immediately for the Band-Aids and the doctor visits.
Right, you save the receipts.
Exactly. You pay out of pocket, keep the receipts, let the money in the HSA compound tax-free for 20 years, and then reimburse yourself decades later.
And after age 65, you can withdraw funds for literally any reason, paying standard income tax just like a traditional 401k. If you are getting squeezed in your 40s, optimizing an HSA is a huge lever to pull.
It is a massive lever. And speaking of levers, the Safe Money data brings up an absolute tragedy regarding free money. They remind us that the employer match is the highest return investment available anywhere.
Call the match, yes.
A 50% match on 6% of your salary is an immediate, guaranteed 50% return on your money, yet 30% of eligible workers leave this free money on the table.
30%, that's insane.
In your 40s, leaving a 50% guaranteed return behind is mathematically devastating to your FIRE goals. You cannot outinvest a mismatch.
So what happens if you look at your accounts and realize you're part of that 30%? Let's say you reach your 50s, your absolute peak earning years, and your multiplier isn't anywhere near that 3 or 4 times mark. We transition here from accumulation to acceleration, the catch-up phase.
The 50s are the last major sprint, and the numbers really reflect the panic of that sprint.
The Federal Reserve shows Americans in their 50s have a median of $82,000. But the engaged Empower users in their 50s are sitting at a median of almost $247,000.
That's a huge delta.
It is. And the goal, according to Fidelity, is that by age 50, you should have 6 times your annual salary saved.
6 times. Now, if you are behind that benchmark, the tax code actually throws you a lifeline. Looking at the IRS rules for 2026, the standard 401k contribution limit has been increased to $24,500.
Okay.
But if you are 50 or older, you get an extra $7,500 in catch-up contributions. That means you can shelter $32,000 a year in a 401k alone.
Wow. 32 grand.
This decade is about maximizing every single tax-advantaged space you have to forcefully bridge the gap between where you are and that 6 times multiplier.
Okay, let's talk about the actual safety of this money, though.
Yeah.
Let's say you do everything right. You are perfectly on track with 6 times your salary at age 50. You're accelerating.
Yeah.
But what happens if the market suddenly tanks or inflation spikes right before you actually pull the plug and retire? Because we've seen this happen.
What's fascinating here is we don't have to guess what happens. The actuarial paper by Drew Thomas models the exact math of these risks, and it should terrify anyone relying on simple averages.
Terrify them how?
Well, we tend to focus just on average historical returns, but Thomas isolates the specific variables that destroy portfolios. For example, he calculates that if expected inflation increases by just 1%, a seemingly tiny amount, you require 20% more capital to survive a 30-year retirement.
Wait. Explain the mechanism there. Why does a 1% bump in inflation require a massive 20% more cash?
Because that 1% compounds against your purchasing power every single year for decades. If your cost of living goes up 1% more than you modeled, your withdrawals have to increase by 1% more than you modeled.
Oh, and it just snowballs.
Exactly. Over 30 years, that accelerating withdrawal rate forcefully hollows out your principal. But the market timing risk is even more severe. Thomas calculates that a 20% market crash in your very first year of retirement, what we call sequence of returns risk, requires you to hold 29% more capital to ensure you don't run out of money.
Let's break that down for people because sequence of returns risk is the ultimate portfolio killer.
Yeah.
Let's say your FIRE number was $1 million and you
Yeah.
plan to withdraw $40,000 a year.
Simple enough.
But in year one, the market drops 20%. Before you even take a dollar out, your portfolio is down to $800,000. Then you withdraw your $40,000 to live. You are now at $760,000.
Precisely. And the next year, because of inflation, you might need $41,000. But your portfolio is now much smaller. To get that $41,000 out of a $760,000 portfolio, you are selling off a significantly larger number of shares at depressed prices.
So you're eating the engine of the car.
You are actively cannibalizing the principal. Even when the market eventually bounces back, your portfolio won't fully recover because those shares are permanently gone.
That is terrifying. To survive that, you actually needed almost 1.3 million to be safe, not 1 million, which leads us directly into the final leg of our journey, the final approach, your 60s, and the infamous 4%
At
rule.
the finish line.
With all those risks laid out, how do you turn that pile of cash into a paycheck you literally cannot outlive?
This is where the theoretical math completely collides with reality.
Let's look at the benchmarks. According to the Federal Reserve, the median for age 65 and up is $87,000.
All right.
But for our engaged and power users in their 60s, the median is $187,000.
And by age 60, the fidelity target is to have 8 times your annual salary, aiming to land at 10 times your salary by age 65 or 67.
10 times, that's the big one.
That 10 times multiplier is highly specific. Hitting 10 times your final income generally allows you to safely replace about 45% of your pre-retirement income from your portfolio.
Assuming Social Security covers the rest.
Exactly. The core assumption there is that Social Security will step in to keep your lifestyle relatively intact. But if your goal is fat FIRE, 10 times won't even come close. You may need 12 times or even 15 times your salary, especially if your lavish lifestyle wildly exceeds what Social Security will provide, or if you simply want the autonomy to ignore government benefits entirely.
Right. And once you hit that number, however large it is, you have to start withdrawing it.
Yeah.
Now, we see financial personalities out there like Dave Ramsey who loudly claim you can safely withdraw 8% of your portfolio every year because the stock market averages 10 to 12% returns.
And the actuarial community firmly, categorically debunks that advice. Drew Thomas's paper addresses this exact claim head-on.
Where does he go?
He points out that while the S&P 500 does average over 10% historically, you cannot spend an average. You spend the reality of any given year. Thomas introduces what he calls the 4 horsemen of retirement that drag your safe withdrawal rate down to roughly 4%.
4 horsemen. Okay, let's go through exactly how these horsemen destroy a portfolio.
Number one is inflation and consumption growth. As we noted, if things cost more, you pull out more, draining the principal faster.
Makes sense.
Number two is variance and kurtosis drags. This is the mathematical term for the sequence of returns risk we just discussed. Market volatility destroys portfolios that are being actively drawn down. The deeper the valleys, the more shares you have to sell to survive.
So variance is the killer. What are the last two?
Number three is longevity risk. It's the simple risk of living longer than you planned. If you plan for 25 years and live for 35, the math breaks.
Outliving your money.
Exactly. And number four is bond dilution. Almost no one actually retires with a 100% stock portfolio. The volatility would give you a heart attack. You hold bonds for safety.
Right, for stability.
But bonds have lower historical returns than stocks, which lowers the overall expected return of your entire portfolio. When you account for those four horsemen, inflation, volatility, living too long, and holding safe assets, the mathematical reality of a safe withdrawal rate plummets to roughly 4%. Neglecting these variables and blindly pulling out 8% is incredibly dangerous.
I look at Dave Ramsey's 8% rule like deciding to drive 100 miles per hour on the highway just because the average speed of traffic is moving fast.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
You are completely ignoring the fact that a single pothole, the variance, is going to wreck your car at that speed.
Yeah.
You can't budget your survival on an average. You have to plan for the potholes.
That is the perfect analogy. The 4% rule is essentially your shock absorber against those potholes. It's the mathematical buffer that ensures a bad year in the market doesn't leave you destitute.
Let's bring this all together. We've mapped out the whole trail today. The critical milestones for a standard retirement path are 1 times your salary by 30, 3 times by 40, 6 times by 50, 8 times by 60, and finally 10 times by 65.
And layered on top of that is the rule of 25, which dictates your ultimate FIRE number based on the lifestyle you want, whether that's the minimalist lean FIRE or the luxurious fat FIRE. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is crucial to remember that these multipliers are benchmarks, not moral judgments.
Right.
The vast majority of Americans are not hitting them, as the median data clearly shows. The true goal of the FIRE movement isn't just about hitting a high score on a spreadsheet. It's about autonomy and freedom. Every single percentage point you manage to save today is literally buying back your future time.
Buying back your time. That is the ultimate currency. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a massive, slightly chilling blind spot we found in the healthinsurance.org source.
Yes, the trap.
A lot of people plan to retire early on a tight, lean FIRE budget. And to make the math work, they strategically keep their taxable income low to qualify for massive subsidies under the Affordable Care Act to bridge the gap until Medicare kicks in at 65. But there's a huge trap here. It's called Medicaid estate recovery.
This is a devastating catch for early retirees who just don't understand the mechanisms of the healthcare system.
Exactly why it happens is what's so scary. If you live in a state that expanded Medicaid and you drop your taxable income below 138% of the federal poverty level to get those cheap ACA premiums, you are automatically pushed off the ACA exchange and onto Medicaid.
Yep.
You get free health care. It feels like a massive win for your lean FIRE budget. But under federal rules, states are legally required to recoup the costs of Medicaid-funded long-term care after you die.
And here is the kicker. States also have the option to use estate recovery to recoup any Medicaid expenses you incurred after you turned 55. Not just long-term care, but regular doctor visits, prescriptions, everything.
Which means if you rely on Medicaid to fund your lean FIRE lifestyle in your late 50s and early 60s, the state keeps a ledger of every dollar they spend on you. And when you pass away, they can legally come after your estate, including your house, to recover those healthcare costs.
It's wild.
Your brilliant strategy to retire early by utilizing government subsidies could inadvertently cost your heirs absolutely everything you managed to save. You are literally mortgaging your estate to pay for early retirement. It is absolutely vital to investigate the estate recovery laws in your specific state before banking your entire FIRE plan on cheap healthcare.
It perfectly illustrates why meticulous planning is necessary. You cannot rely on broad assumptions. The rules of the game are incredibly complex, the mechanisms are hidden, and the stakes are literally your life savings.
Which brings us right back to where we started. Looking at the map of your retirement plan is one thing, but hiking the actual trail is full of hidden drops, steep inclines, and legal traps. Don't just trust the smooth line on the paper. Take a hard look at your own multipliers today. Figure out exactly where you are on the trail, calculate your own rule of 25, and adjust your gear accordingly. Thanks for diving deep with us today.